Very good evening, my dear friends. I welcome you all on behalf of BSE Brokers Forum. As you are aware, Forum conducts a lot of seminars for the benefit of its member brokers. So today we are going to head a seminar on arbitration, and we are very fortunate to have among us one of the eminent speakers, Justice Roshan S. Dalvi. Born on 6 November 1953, she completed her BCom in 1973 with specialization in business management and LLM in 1978 from University of Bombay. She was appointed Fellow of Government Law College and awarded Merit Scholarship of University of Bombay in LLM. She had practiced as a counsel on the original side of the Bombay High Court from August 1976 to September 1989 in civil and corporate matters. She has also been visiting faculty at Jamnalal Bajaj Institute of Management Studies in Narsee Monjee for corporate law between 1979 and 1989. She was appointed as a judge, Bombay City Civil and Sessions Court in September 1989. She has presided over civil and criminal matters and Special Court CBI and Special Court MPID for anti-corruption and investor fraud cases. She served as a principal judge, Family Court and Mumbai from July 2004 to December 2004. She was selected to participate in the judicial training program in gender and law at the University of Warwick, Coventry, UK, meant for Indian judicial officers under Indo-British Judicial Sensitization Program conducted by British Council in conjunction with National Judicial Academy, and has been a member of the Association of British Scholars, Mumbai chapter, for undertaking various socio-legal programs. Not last but not the least, she has also conducted workshops, colloquia as a resource person, trainer for judges and lawyers on gender laws, court cases and management and alternative dispute resolution. She was elevated as judge to the Bombay High Court bench in June 2005 and retired in November 2015. So with this humble introduction, I request Ms. Roshan to please come on the dais. I also take this opportunity to thank Advocate Neha Ahuja for getting such a resource person for us. And right now I would again request our Shri Harin Mehta, our Joint Secretary, to please come and give a floral welcome. Ma'am is going to give her views extempore, and then we can have a question answer session. Nice is yours.
Good evening, friends. I have been a judge for 27 years, so I can talk to you about the Indian judiciary. You all know that the Indian judiciary is amongst the best in the world when substantive law is concerned. But when you think about procedural law, then the Indian judiciary really doesn't come up to par. If you see the impressions of the Indian judiciary elsewhere, in America, in Canada, in England, they always say that the Indian Supreme Court's decisions can be followed by any of our courts, just as we follow theirs. But if there is any arbitration or any international contract in which parties have to choose the forum, then they would not choose India. I know specially about a lawyer who said that he had an American client, and it was a deal between an American and Swedish company which was to set up its plant near Pune. He was representing the American company and the agreement had to be drawn. The Americans told him that you can draft the agreement any way you want, but the clause of jurisdiction and arbitration and the proper law of contract will not be India. So you see, they have a lot of confidence in our country. They have a lot of confidence for investment, for trade, for economics. But we have to inculcate that confidence also in our legal structure. And the only corner where we fail is the procedural corner, because of our law's delays. Now you are all brokers. You will be having contracts with your clients. Similarly, you have a main contract with the BSE, whose members you are. All these contractual relations today are governed more by arbitration than by adjudication. We have very few matters in court relating to brokers' fees. We have also very few matters relating to contracts of a member broker. But all these contracts, these contractual relations are settled in arbitration. Now what is arbitration? Arbitration is the same as adjudication, but it is by your chosen judge. So that judge can and must give you all the time, and the lawyers who represent you and your adversary also must be the lawyers who have the time that the judge gives. Once that is done, a judicial adjudication will come about in the form of an award instead of a judgment. That is binding on the parties except if it is challenged and that challenge is upheld. I'll tell you about that a little later. Now on this superstructure, we had the Arbitration Act of 1940. But the Arbitration Act of 1940 had many loopholes, as they say. And in these loopholes, the parties who require money, the parties who require specific performance of a contract, the parties who require contractual obligations to be performed, or who require damages and other reliefs for non-performance of that contractual obligation, were the ones who were at the receiving end. The party who was in breach made merry. So the entire act was repealed by the Arbitration and Conciliation Act of 1996. And in 1996, we got a law which could be almost on par with the laws abroad, but yet not completely. Now there were still a few loopholes remaining, though the main things were that this is an informal forum. All that the arbitrator has to do is to follow the substantive law. The arbitrator doesn't have to follow the procedural law. So the Civil Procedure Code and the Evidence Act, the rigors of those two legislations were not really in arbitration. Now everybody thought that this was really ideal. You have your chosen judge, you go there in a day or two, then certain directions are passed, you comply with those directions, he hears you, he takes evidence in an informal way, and he gives you an award. But alas, it was not so. It didn't become so. What happened was that parties who were not really having the core competence to be trial lawyers or trial judges became arbitrators and the councils representing the parties. They were bound down by the High Court and the City Court procedures of CPC. And therefore it took just as long in the arbitration as it would take in the courts. So in 2015, we have had a complete overhauling of this system. And now the Arbitration Act, or the same act but with the amended provisions, is absolutely on par with any in the world. So we've got two parts in that, the national and the international arbitrations. You are concerned with the national arbitrations. These arbitrations are mainly for two aspects. The large two heads are one, contractual relationships, and two, family relationships. Now you will fall in the first category as brokers. As I told you, you are a contractual party. It's a contract between you. So the contract has to be shown to the arbitrator. In all probability and in most of the matters, our experience shows that the execution of that contract is admitted by the parties. So your client will also admit that this was a contract, he had signed it, etc., all the terms and conditions, everything that forms the substance of your contract. Now, it will require either interpretation or it will require adjudication about a money claim. These are the two main types of brokers' contracts which are dealt with in arbitration. So either your client has not paid you the money as per the terms of the contract and you want to recover from him, or you want him to perform the contract, or you want to rescind your contract. These are the main heads of arbitration by a broker, just as it would be for any other contractual party in a contract. Now, how does the Arbitration Act deal with these kind of matters? As I read the Arbitration Act, it deals with certain managerial principles. And this is not the management principles only that can be applied in big corporations. It can be applied even to a broker's firm, and therefore even in arbitration for all contractual parties. Now, the main important business principle is the principle of paradigm shift. I'll explain to you what that principle is. It is that when you are doing one thing and it is not bringing any results, then you have to change the entire superstructure and do it differently. And you are business people, so you would understand this even better than I do. I've been a professional only. Now I'll give you an example of how a paradigm shift can take place, and it has taken place in the arbitration law. There was once a sitarist. He was learning the sitar with his guru. He practiced for many years, but his guru was not satisfied. So his guru asked him to play the sitar again and again and again. And he was saying that I can't do any better than this. I'm giving it my all. So his guru tells him, take out the sitar from your right hand, put it in your left hand, and start from the beginning. And he got it right. Now this was a paradigm shift in his work as a sitarist. I hope you are understanding the meaning of paradigm shift, because then you will understand what is the paradigm shift in the Arbitration Act and how it will affect you all. I'll give you another example. There was once a beggar. He was blind. So he wrote down, I am blind, please help. He kept it and he waited with his begging bowl. Nobody was giving him a single coin. Then one man went past and he took his slate, he rubbed out something, he wrote something and he went away. And after that man went away, he got so many coins in his bowl. Now this man came back again in the evening and he asked the beggar, how was your day? He's saying, brother, you had come in the morning, I know. You did something with my slate. I was not getting a single coin, but then my entire bowl has been full. What did you do in my slate? So he said, oh, nothing much. It's okay, I'm happy that you got the money. But what had he done? He rubbed out, I am blind, please help. And he wrote, it is a lovely sunny day, but I cannot see it. So this was a paradigm shift in his approach to his business of begging. And every business has a paradigm. Usually the paradigm is only to make money, to make profits. That is what businesses are for. But businesses also have some values, some professionalism, and a way of doing things. And therefore we have different kinds of businessmen today. We have insurance agents, and we have brokers, and we have stock brokers, and we have other brokers, and we have brokers in the customs, etc. So they are all professionals in their own trade. They cannot do anything else. And if they are not doing well, then it is like Mark Twain said, if you do the same thing, you will get the same results. So you have to do something differently. Now, how is this Arbitration Act today very different? Since the Arbitration Act required expedition, that courts are too jam-packed to capacity with matters. And therefore you go to an arbitrator who is a retired judge, or who is a counsel, or who is a lawyer, or who is a domain architect, arbitrator as they say, For a contractual work of construction, you go to a RCC consultant, for example, or architects, or brokers, or persons in the BSE. These are the domain arbitrators. Now, after appointing them, what do you expect? You expect that the result will come expeditiously. In England, arbitrations can be finished even in 1 week. Because parties are always ready. They give their pleadings. Everything has got discipline of work. The arbitrator reads up everything. And when he comes, he hears the parties. He may adjourn it once or twice to get whatever he wants. And then he immediately dictates the award. Even in 1 week, awards have come. So this was not happening. Therefore, now we have got this paradigm shift, luckily for you all, under section 29 A and B, which are the new sections in the Arbitration Act. And what do they say? The recommended period of completion of arbitration is 6 months. So when you go and refer the matter to an arbitrator, you file a statement of claim, the other party is served, he is given time to file his defense, he files it within a specified time as directed. With that, he may file his counterclaim. Then you file a reply to the counterclaim again as directed. And then the arbitrator will hear both of you and he may pass an award. If you agree, it will be even without oral hearing, only on written hearing. That means written arguments. Otherwise, it will be on oral hearing. If no evidence is required, and by evidence only for the evidence that much which is required. This is how arbitrations have to be conducted, and especially for broker claims, because you have got written agreements, everybody is a member, your clients know about all that, those agreements are with you, and therefore the thing that remains is only to see your account statements, interpret your agreement, and you may have to leave no evidence whatsoever. So you can tell the arbitrator that these are the documents which are admitted, these are the accounts which are kept, this and that. This can be done within 6 months. If not, then the allowed period, this is the recommended period, this is the desired period. But otherwise, in case there is still some delay and you have to take inspection of documents and then you have to get your witnesses or any such thing, then 1 year is given. If it is more than 1 year, you have to take special permission of the court to extend the time. And that extension of time can be given for 6 more months. So we come to 18 months. In that much time, arbitrations have to be over. And these are not the small claims or money claims. These are all arbitrations. Arbitrations on huge contracts involving crores of rupees also. The period is the same. Now, if this does not take place, then any party can say that the arbitrator will be replaced. Formerly, there was no such provision. This is a paradigm shift in the Arbitration Act. So you get a new arbitrator, because the old arbitrator has not worked, and that replacement will be if the delay is on account of the arbitrator. There may be an arbitrator with many arbitrations, and therefore he cannot give you dates for 3, 4, 5 months. So that is now done away with, and absolutely and entirely. That is a paradigm shift. The other provision is that the arbitrator's fees can be reduced up to 5% if it is because of the fault of the arbitrator that there is delay. Now, this is not in any legislation in the world. We have got it. And this is a paradigm shift. The second thing is between parties. And that is under section 31 and 32, A and B of the Arbitration Act. One is relating to interest. Any arbitrator can grant interest. That interest today is now 2% more than the commercial rate of interest. Commercial rate of interest is the bank rate of interest, that is the bank lends. And the arbitrator can grant 2% more. So if a party really wants to delay, and generally your clients, if you have made a money claim, would want to delay, then you can get interest not only at the commercial rate, but at 2% more than the commercial rate under our Act. The third under Section 32 is the question of costs, and that is actual costs and compensatory costs. So any amount of costs can be given by the arbitrator, and compensatory costs means costs which will compensate you for the injury which is done to you, whoever is the claimant. It applies to all claimants in all contracts, including brokers' contracts. Now, the arbitration is over. The arbitrator has to give an award within 30 days. The arbitrator gives the award and it could be challenged. The loophole in the earlier Act was that as soon as an award is given, there is deemed to be a stay of the award for a period of about 3 or 4 months, giving the other party a right to challenge it. Because there must be at least one challenge. That is what was thought in the Act. That somebody has given a judgment, at least one court must see that that judgment is correct or not correct. So there was a kind of an implied stay. But that was only for 4 months. 3 months plus 30 days. So 4 months. Now there is no implied stay. So within a period of limitation, which is a very short period of 4 months, the other party would have to challenge. If he doesn't challenge, it's barred by limitation. And if he challenges, then that court will decide, as if to say it is a first appeal in the High Court, about whether it will be stayed or not, and if it will be stayed, on what conditions it will be stayed. So generally, we grant stay. A court would grant stay upon deposit of the money, giving security for the money. So, this is a double advantage. One is that the party will not say that to save the bar of limitation, I have filed a challenge and keep quiet. Because once he files a challenge and there is no order, it would be stayed. And then if the other party who has got, the claimant who has got the award, doesn't want to enforce the award, it can stay like that for 3-4 years also. Now it cannot be done. Because he will have to grant, the stay will be given only upon security for costs or only upon deposit. Otherwise, the other party like you, the brokers, you have to just go in for enforcement of the award. So this, I think, at present, it is on par with any in the world. And this is the basic superstructure of the Arbitration Act. Okay? Now, we have to see this Arbitration Act not only from the principle of paradigm shift, but from other business principles. The second business principle is the principle of core competence. Now, what is this core competence? A surgeon can do only surgery. A gynecologist can do only that kind of surgery. So these are core competence. We will not go for gynecology work to a cancer specialist, even if he is a surgeon. Because there is core competence in that business. Even in law, there is core competence. You do IPR, you do family law, you do criminal law, or you do law relating to civil monetary claims. So that lawyer will do that for his entire lifetime, and he has got core competence. Similarly, what the Act wants is the core competence of the arbitrators. And therefore, what has the Act said? You can have one domain arbitrators. You can have arbitrators whom you can appoint by consent, and there will be sole arbitration if agreed by the parties or if appointed by any authority. Like for example, the BSE. The BSE may say that for all the claims of our brokers, like the IICL, the Indian Institute of Arbitration and IIAC, Indian Institute of Arbitration and Conciliation, which is at the IMC, at Churchgate. What they do is, they have this core competence. So they will suggest that for these kind of matters, so-and-so retired judges, so-and-so lawyers, so-and-so accountants are the best arbitrators. From their panel, you can decide, you can choose. So by having those rules framed under the Arbitration Act, you can set this process very well. A trial judge and a trial lawyer is a good arbitrator, because arbitration is just a trial otherwise. Okay. So after this principle of core competence, the next principle is of non-value added items. This is a very important business principle, and that you may be knowing as businessmen. See, no businessman wants to do anything which does not add value to his work. And his value is in the profit. Just as a court's value is in the judgments that it gives and in the time that it gives the judgment. Now when you want to make a profit, and that is your non-value added items, you don't want to do so many things which are unnecessary, right? You will say, I just want to maintain the accounts, I want to give him notice, I want to get my monies in my account. That's all I am interested in. So the Arbitration Act has now done away with all the procedures and technicalities of adjudication. There are no applications to be made. An arbitrator will himself decide his own jurisdiction, and once that is decided, will decide interim relief and make an interim award or make a final award. I hope you got it correctly. So there is no non-value added items. You go to the last thing first in our Arbitration Act. And that is very important for these kind of matters where mostly there will be claims on contract or money claims. Now after this, the other business principle is the principle of blame storming. It's a very new principle. It is usually now in the new big business houses. There is an impact assessment. Based on the impact assessment is a business policy. Now BSE can do some impact assessment because BSE will have so many of your members. I'm told there are 900 members. Now they have got their own experiences. You will be meeting, you will be having BSE, whatever, regular meetings, etc. And the usual things which go against you, the usual maladies in your administration, you can bring it forth to the BSE. And BSE can frame rules. They have already framed rules. They can always be amended also. It is because of this kind of blame storming that we have got the new Arbitration Act, which has got this section 29 always. Because they realize that some parties were to make the payment usually delay. So how to set aside all these kind of delays? Arbitrators, some of them have got a lot of work, some of them don't have work, and therefore they cannot give enough time. So they have done that kind of blame storming. They have found out the impact assessment and they have given you a new Arbitration Act from 2016. Okay? The next is the principle of decentralization, which is also in the Arbitration Act. And that is each one for himself and God for all. It is like that. Now in the court when you come, you file a suit and then the court will serve the summons through you. Then the reply will go back and then the defendant will come, etc. In arbitration it is not like that. You can yourself serve, you have to file a statement of claim, you have to show the service, the arbitrator will see the service. If nobody comes, the arbitrator may give one notice and the arbitrator can proceed. So each one will be entitled to serve in arbitration. There is nothing like a court process. It is his own process. And therefore, if there are say 500 matters all around with the arbitrators, 500 matters can get served by email or by fax or by whichever mode that you can think of, and parties come. My experience as a judge also is that in an adjudication, when we allow parties to serve, and that is what happens now by kind of convention, that when you apply for any urgent relief, you have to serve and come. So the other party has got all the papers and proceedings. He's got the knowledge of the claim. And after that, he will waive service of the summons. Here under the Arbitration Act, it is implied and it is done. So there is this principle of decentralization, which lessens the technicalities. Now the next principle is the principle of a package deal. See, when you go to a court, you tell the lawyer that I want this money. So the lawyer will say, we have to take out this application, and this application. I will charge you 1, 2, 3 for these applications. But in the arbitration, you don't have to do that. Everything can be brought before the arbitrator at one time. And the arbitrator himself will say that even if there are 2-3 things, I'll decide everything today or the next date of hearing. And he can do away with technicalities because he will say that once the defense comes, I will give the award or the interim award. So it is like a package deal. Now you've got all these package deals in say tourism also. They tell you that we will give you the air ticket, we will give you this hotel, we will give you this kind of sightseeing. Altogether we will charge this much. Now your lawyer will also charge. Of course your lawyer will charge, definitely. But your lawyer will charge as a package deal, put before the arbitrator. Now if you are going to pay him for not delivering the goods, surely you will pay him for delivering the goods, if the goods are going to be delivered quickly. Now this package deal in the Arbitration Act is also for arbitrators' fees. Formerly what was the position under the old Act? That arbitrator could charge any fees per sitting. So the party who wants to delay will make the other party pay. Arbitrator doesn't care because if you want to delay, what do? I have to be paid my fees because I have kept my day free. Now you call me at 4:30, so I come at 4:30. I must be paid for my work at 4:30. Then you tell me, no, there is no lecture, also alright, to pay my fees. It's like that. But now, the arbitrator's fees are fixed. Now some people, that is fixed under the 4th schedule to the Arbitration Act. Now it has got 2 advantages. One is that the arbitrator will be interested in disposing of the matter quickly. I dispose of my arbitration within 6 months when I get it. And I gave the award because I was paid my fees. And now it is simple. There is an ad valorem fee just as you pay the court fees in the suits when you file. So for 1 crore of rupees it is this much, for 1 crore to 10 crores it is this much, etc. etc. Now you pay half the fees, for example, generally to the arbitrator in the beginning. He gives the directions, gets everything, he reads up, he conducts the arbitration. When he completes the arbitration and before the award is given out, you have to pay the other half. Now, parties such as you, especially the brokers, will be interested in making that payment if you are going to get the delivery of your goods quickly. And that delivery will come under the new Arbitration Act. If you have an arbitrator who has given you good dates and who does not have too much of work that he will not give you dates. Okay? Now for that again there is another provision, and that is under the 6th schedule to the Arbitration Act. That a single firm cannot have more than 3 arbitrations with the same arbitrator. So there is a capital. So there is kind of decentralization of work. Many more arbitrators who are lawyers, retired judges, chartered accountants, whoever, even architects in those kind of contracts, they will get that arbitration. So with the decentralization, more persons work, it becomes broad-based. You know the principles of decentralization in business. And that same principle can be adopted in arbitration. So there is that capital. Okay? Now there is a principle of transparency. 7th schedule. The arbitrator will have to declare his interest. I know this party. I am a relative of that party. I hold shares in this private limited company. It's for private holding, etc. So that the other party knows. And if he takes an objection, the arbitrator will say, I don't want that arbitration. There are some arbitrators who say no from the beginning. That I am declaring that I have got some interest. I don't want to take it up. So you know whom to go to. So that is another transparency measure. Now, having seen all this, what I would say is the most important business principle of time management and simplification is in our Arbitration Act. Time management is in the rules. You file a statement of claim, within 30 days, he has to file the reply. Within 21 days, you have to file the reply to the counter claim if he makes a counter claim. Come before the arbitrator, and the arbitrator will give you time only for inspection, etc., and finish it up. So this is the time management that is taken care of. That is under the rules, not under the Act. Now there are special rules. For example, the IIA has got its own rules. I've got them. I'll just show them to you. And they are printed rules. You can, I think BSE also has or must have those kind of rules for its own members. Now this principle of simplification, how it can be done. I would say it can be done by the principle of AAIEAA. I would put it that way. A stands for address. Another A stands for admissions. I, issues. E is evidence. Then A is arguments. And A is award. These are the 6 steps. Very simple. And how you can do it, and this is what I do as an arbitrator. When the statement of claim comes and the defense comes, the arbitrator must read up the papers carefully, of course. The lawyers also must be perfectly prepared, because when you are going to have scientific, good management, then it goes on a footing that you are well prepared. Okay? So they come on regular time, as per time management, and they know. So the arbitrator knows what the matter is about. Now the arbitrator says, okay, you address, then I will decide whether I will give you interim relief or final relief or whatever. So there is an address by both the parties, and they will tell the arbitrator in a nutshell what they want. What is it about? When that is done, the first and the most important and the simplest thing to do is to record the admissions. This is not given in the Arbitration Act. It should be in the rules. It is not even given in the rules of the IMC and the IICM. But I would say it's the most salutary provision, and this is what I always follow. So when there is admission recorded, for example, that this agreement was admittedly executed between the parties, both parties say yes, this is the agreement. Now the arbitrator will have to interpret the agreement, or the arbitrator will have to say that under the agreement, who is entitled to what? By way of interpretation. If the agreement is challenged or some damages are claimed, then the arbitrator will say, okay, for this much you need oral evidence, and then you cross-examine in front of me, I will take down a memorandum of evidence. Okay? So, first, setting out the admissions is the most important simplistic step. When you set out this evidence as an arbitrator, and your lawyers must also tell the arbitrator to do that, you will see that there are many documents which also get admitted. There is correspondence between the parties. You are bound to have that as brokers. There would be some correspondence now by email or even SMS or whichever way that you are using. And that correspondence would be an admitted correspondence. It will have to be interpreted. So all that can be marked as documents even on the first date of hearing of the arbitration. Because it is a flexible procedure that the arbitrator has to follow. Once this A is finished, then comes the I. When all these admitted facts are recorded, admitted documents are marked, then issues are narrowed down. So the arbitrator will then frame the issues only relating to what is the disputed fact between the parties. Generally, it will be just 1 or 2 issues. And on those issues, if evidence is required, as I said, suppose there is a claim for mental agony, there is a claim for loss of business, and you have to prove that claim by evidence. So the broker or whoever is the claimant in the contract will have to lead evidence by affidavit, and he will be cross-examined. The cross-examination is very simple. This is for mental agony. Now you cross-examine, the arbitrator will take down the memorandum, so that evidence part also gets over. Then comes the arguments based upon admitted facts on the pleadings, evidence, and the documents that are brought in. And then comes the award. So in the 6 stages, the arbitration under the Arbitration Act, with specified fees of the arbitrator, with specific time, can be over. And this is how we have come on par with the world. Please remember, everywhere in the world where we look upon, I'm not talking about Afghanistan, I'm talking about America, I'm talking about United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, Singapore. Wherever arbitration has flourished, it is on these 6 grounds. That is all that is there. AAIEAA. I would call it that. So as they say, it is a great leap for mankind, a small step in legislation. Thank you.
judges.
How can we change arbitrator during the course of arbitration if we are not satisfied? How can we change the arbitrator during the arbitration?
Yes, you can apply to court. See, today, under section 29, so let's keep it because they will also.
See, under section 29 today, if an arbitrator cannot finish within 18 months, and it is because of the delay caused by the arbitrator, you can apply to court for replacing the arbitrator. When you make that application to the court will ask you which other arbitrator you want to have, and the court will pass such an order.
But filing with the court and it will take time and we have to go to the court, hire the lawyer.
But if the arbitrator himself agrees and says that, okay, but I cannot finish it, I've got 16 other arbitrations, then it's fine.
No, it's not a matter of finishing the arbitration within a time frame or something like that. It is we are not satisfied. Sometimes he is biased and something other reasons are there. So how can we?
You have to make an application to court if you don't want it. Because you see, this arbitration is one process. It is in our justice system today under section 89 of the CPC, correct? That is the first alternative mode. So you are under the umbrella of the court. And therefore, if you want to change your chosen judge, you will have to go to court and show that this is a bias that is there. It may be that you are either mistakenly or otherwise simply at all prejudiced also, and the court may not change the arbitrator. The court will say, what is wrong with this? I don't see any bias. Because otherwise what happens is, any party against whom an award is going to be made can easily say that I am not satisfied. I think that he is biased, and therefore change him. The court is not going to change him. So therefore somebody else will have to decide whether what you say is bias is really bias. Unless of course the time has passed, and then the court will definitely change and replace the arbitrator. Because now the Act says so.
Nowadays there is a lot of arbitrators, they are just liars. Simply
They are?
liars. They are just liars, they are not retired judges, they don't have experience. They are chartered accountants, really they are not experienced. By hook or crook, they become arbitrators. So there is so many things are there we have practically seen. They really don't know our regulations, our rules, bylaws, but they become arbitrator. So we find difficult to satisfy them through our this thing contract and something. They are going beyond these things. They are looking our business beyond our bylaws and other things.
Okay.
So that is
Now-
becoming
now-
very difficult to satisfy them.
See, this satisfaction, I think, will not allow you to replace the arbitrator. You have chosen this arbitrator with whatever qualification that he has.
No, we are not choosing because that is appointed by randomly by the exchanges only. We don't know who would be our arbitrator. Earlier it was
You mean
the
the
BSc,
BSc, the BSc
and
award?
NFC, both the places.
There is a panel of arbitrators.
Yeah, there is a panel of arbitrators approved by SEBI, but we don't know how they became arbitrator.
But that is a thing to work out with the BSc as a member of BSc. But if you go into arbitration, then after that, you have to try to satisfy him, and you have to get an award or not get an award. Then you have to challenge the award. Now you may say that even a judge doesn't know anything, because I think I only know. So then what, you can't replace that judge. Arbitrator is the chosen judge. But when you go to court, you get the judge who is there.
So that's I use you have it's a chosen judge. So that should be the case. Ki really both the parties are satisfied with this the
Yes, they should be
arbitrator.
satisfied.
So then there is no issue for.
Now you see, just one.
IIAC, in the IFC, they have got all these booklets. They have make their rules, they have got their panel of arbitrators. Okay? And people are now satisfied with them because they have got.
वो बोल रहा डॉक्टर सर किधर है पूछ रहा है.
They have got domain arbitrators. So if there is a claim on law, then they will appoint a retired judge or a trial lawyer. If there is anything to do with construction, they will appoint that kind of a lawyer. If they will appoint an architect, a RCC consultant, structural engineer, that kind of thing. If there is anything to do with accounts, then they would appoint accountants. They've got those panels. So basically this query of yours is now satisfied there. You must have BSE appoint people who would be domain arbitrators. That means if there is only a legal point of law involved, then judges and lawyers. If not, accountants. If not, even some other brokers or any such thing, because then they know really how your business goes on. But that is the thing you have to do, not to replace just the arbitrators. Whoever is appointed now.
And my second question, can we execute the arbitration award after 12 years?
Can we execute?
Yeah.
After what?
After 12 years. I think that is the expiry of 12 years.
12 years?
Yeah.
12 years is the limitation period.
Yeah, that is the highest.
See, all the substantive laws apply to arbitration.
Yeah.
The procedural laws don't apply to arbitration. So therefore, you have to abide by the laws of our country. Every single law, including the law of enforcement of awards. But you may have a flexible procedure. And therefore, I told you the procedure can be AAIEA. So that is not of the CPC, that is not of the Evidence Act. That is a culled out procedure for arbitration which is fit for that forum. But all other laws will apply.
Okay, thanks. We also come across different states. Suppose the jurisdiction we won the award at BSE NSE here, and the constituent at something like Ajmer, he go and take the stay of our award. At Ajmer is a small court, just like judicial magistrate, something like that. So really they have jurisdiction to stop the execution.
Again, there you have to see the territorial jurisdiction at the time there is arbitration. If the arbitrator doesn't have jurisdiction, you have to challenge the jurisdiction. The arbitrator himself will decide on his jurisdiction. After that, if you have to enforce the award, you will have to go to the place where the property is situated that you want to take, attach.
No, party challenging award there at their local address.
But that is not right. So you have to, but in that challenge, you have to point out to the court under section 36 that court does not have jurisdiction, and under section 42 of the Arbitration Act, all the applications will have to be made where the place of arbitration was. So that settles everything. This is a very wrong procedure if they want to challenge it there. But if you have to enforce it, you will have to go there. Because if he is settled there, then he has his properties there. So if you want to attach his properties, if you want to take him to prison also, you have to go there. And then a precept will be issued. What happens is that this court, where you will file the enforcement of the award application, this court will issue a precept upon that court, telling that court to attach the property. That is when you want to enforce the claim. But if somebody wants to challenge, you may not want to challenge because you got an award. Mostly you will get an award in your favor. But if the other party, your client, wants to challenge it, he will have to come where the arbitration was. That is the place. That has to be pointed out. You see, these parties, they purposely go to the wrong forum only to buy time. Yeah. That is our national character. That is our national character today. So you go there, you call that party there, then you tire him out there, then you come back. Now, Arbitration Act is not responsible for that. Our moral character is responsible for that. But there are so many parties who will say, all right, I will challenge because I really want to challenge an award properly. He'll come to the right forum where the place of arbitration was. But you see, you have to fight, if you have to fight a crook, he is a crook, the law is not the crook. It's like that.
Okay, thank you.
One of the things for stockbroker is that there hasn't been argument continuous running out. We are the service provider and the client is a service gainer. So for a service tax, there is an argument that either you can bond from the service tax where it is originated or where it is born. So in this case, so if a client is filing from Ajmer, so he is bonding the benefit out there.
He is getting benefit.
Yes.
Of
the
what?
services we provide.
Of the service provided.
So
There.
yes. So can he do that in that case? The case.
Actually, your agreement would show whether he can get benefit of your service there. Everything will depend upon the interpretation of the agreement between the parties.
Because we have BSc and NSA was redressal mechanism which states that they are appointed by the SEBI. So it is in Mumbai. The first redressal is in Mumbai. So the client in that case scenario, can he approach the jurisdiction in Ajmer?
As I understand, your agreement would not permit this. If your client is here, the agreement is signed here, then you have rendered him services here. Thereafter there is an arbitration, then everything would be here.
But the services he is
If always your client was in Ajmer,
yeah.
then you have provided him services there. Then in that case, in the place of arbitration also could have been Ajmer.
It is always here because the BSc and NSA
So
is
in that
always
case, you have to go under section 42 of the Arbitration Act to say that wherever there was place of arbitration, then thereafter for any other application that you make, including the challenge to the arbitration, everything, the execution and all, will be at the place of arbitration. Because your agreement says that no matter where you get the service, the place of arbitration is Bombay. Then it will be that. That is how the contract would have to be read. And that, I suppose you can do it in the arbitration itself.
We have defined the contract is very much defined by SEBI, so it is not by us.
Okay. But you, of course you can't change it, but you must know how to interpret it. It is there for you. Do you have an agreement? Now you say that the place of arbitration is always Bombay. Huh?
Correct. No,
Okay.
it is not always the case. If a broker is situated in a regional office or somewhere else,
Alright.
then it will be that place.
Okay. So, wherever the place of arbitration is settled in your contract. Do you have in your contract anything called a place for mediation? You have any contract for mediation?
As of now, it is not.
You don't have at all. Then once you come to Bombay, thereafter under section 42 you would have to be in Bombay is how I would basically read that contract.
It is not always the Bombay. It can be a regional offices of any of the exchanges or
Wherever
it is
it
located.
is. You gave me the example of Ajmer and Bombay.
Yeah.
So I am telling you that. So that is only relating to arbitration. And therefore in the contract they will only mention the place of arbitration. And there is always a provision for sole arbitrator. Okay. So under the Arbitration Act also, there is always an impetus for a sole arbitration now. Because of the delays. Because if there are one party appointing arbitrator, another party appoints another arbitrator, the arbitrators will have to appoint an umpire. It takes a long time. And because of the expedition which is contemplated in the new Arbitration Act, there is a provision for sole arbitration. And in fact, the fees of the arbitration will be 25% more for sole arbitration actually, if there is a sole arbitration. So if that is also provided, mediation is not provided, then you have to come to the place wherever, Bombay or wherever that regional office is or whatever, then thereafter it should be that same place. That is how I would read it, subject to reading carefully the agreement. Otherwise you can have, mid-arb actually in other contracts. Now what we advise the parties is that you put a clause for arbitration and you also put a clause for mediation. Because in business contracts, it is always nice to mediate to see how you can get the money by keeping the relations between the parties. Because you also want your clients to remain your clients. There is no point sending away all the clients and only getting awards against them. Nobody will want to do that. So in mediation, it's a win-win situation. So you can have either mediation, and if mediation does not succeed, then you can go to arbitration before the same mediator or another arbitrator. That is how it should be actually. That is what we advise for all commercial contracts. I would say it should be even for contracts between a stockbroker and his client. Then it will be, wherever you want it, because mediation can be applied.
For us, it is very well predefined when we sign the initial forms, or account opening forms. It's predefined by SEBI.
Right.
So we are not able to modify it nor interpret it.
Okay. So unless it happens for all through the main central bodies, it will not come to you. Correct. So that's what I'm saying. If you find that there is some kind of inherent lack, it is for you to work out with your main organization or the SEBI. That is how you have to take out the problem.
Work with the government of India than to work with the SEBI. This is my personal experience.
Yes. That is. Okay.
Thank you very much, ma'am. On behalf of BSE Brokers Forum, I would like to thank you, respected speakers, for sharing their thoughts on arbitration. Now I call upon stage Mr. Hari Mehta, Joint Secretary of BSE Brokers Forum, to present moment of respected speakers. Thank you very much. And tomorrow we have a seminar on demonetization on same place 4 to 6. Thank you.